All right, so now we're going to move on down to nerves of the lower limbs. So I've made these first few videos and worksheets fairly short to give you time to kind of learn how they work. And then as the course progresses, some of these videos and worksheets will get a little bit longer, okay? So expect that change coming. I'm just kind of trying to give you short bits at first to give you time to get the hang of finding and labeling things. They generally go in really good order, although sometimes there'll be one that really fits with a picture closer up to the top, and so it may go up to the top. But you can always go back. It shouldn't be that difficult if you're printing this off or even if you're filling it out on a computer. All right, so we're looking at another group of plexus here. The lumbosacral plexus is often what we call both the lumbar plexus and the sacral plexus if we want to group them together. And so here are the list of structures to know and the things that you will need to know about the lumbar plexus and the things you will need to know about the sacral plexus, and then some nerves of the lower limbs. So if you're looking at the picture here on the left, you would identify this as the lumbosacral plexus, which it is sometimes referred to. If you see it divided, oh, this should be a little bit higher. Let's be a little more accurate there. If you see it divided to the lumbar would be on top and then sacral on the bottom. So I'm kind of laughing because this thing always seems to freeze on me making some really weird face. So I try to have it not do that, but it just never works. All right, so this one here, this is the lumbar plexus. This diagram is showing you the rootlets and divisions and chords. So it's helpful to learn that, but you are given the list of structures that you need to know. So this forms from the spinal nerves L1 to L4, and it's going to form some branches. All right, and so we've got the iliohypogastric nerve, and you can see that is a branch right here. Then we have the ilioinguinal nerve. This is a branch here. And then the genitofemoral nerve, which is one that you are going to be required. Then the lateral cutaneous nerve, which goes on down to the thigh. The obturator nerve, and then above that is the accessory obturator nerve. And then lastly, there's the lumbosacral trunk down there. Oh, I skipped the femoral nerve as well. Femoral nerve you will need to know. This is the genitofemoral nerve. I like this one because of the way that it splits down. It makes it really easy to identify, okay? Especially in this picture here on the left from APR. It's called genitofemoral because it will divide into a genital branch and a femoral branch, so it makes sense. All right, so again, this name here is going to make sense. This is the lateral femoral cutaneous. So lateral means it's going to be lateral or to the side. And you can see here in this diagram, this shows you how where the nerve originates and how it goes on down. All right. Femoral because it's going to enter the thigh, and then it's cutaneous because it's actually going to provide some innervation to the skin. And this comes through L2 and L3. So the femoral nerve is next, and you can see this is one of the larger nerves. It's not the largest, but it is one of the largest ones. Comes from L2 to L4 branches off that lateral cutaneous, or it branches off into the lateral cutaneous, sorry. Innervates comes from the genitofemoral. Innervates several muscles, including things like the quadriceps femoris and even the skin of the anterior and medial leg. And so you can see this in 3 different locations here. You can see this where it is first coming out from the genitofemoral here, and then you can kind of see as it goes on down here, and this is showing you the whole thing as it's going on through the leg. All right, so now here we can see the obturator. This is going to originate from L2 to L4. It innervates the obturator muscles, adductor longus, brevis, and gracilis. All right, and so obturator, and you can see it over here on this diagram right there as it is coming out and branching down. You see it's also right here. So it kind of has that same pathway as the genitofemoral, but it's lower down. Now we have the lumbosacral trunk, which interconnects the lumbar and sacral plexus. And a trunk is just usually the bottom portion, like the trunk of the tree, and it's going to be thicker, and then it's going to divide off into branches, very much like a tree. And so that's how you know what a trunk is. And we'll look at trunks even somewhat in cardiovascular as well. So now we're looking at the sacral plexus, and you can see this outlined. It is probably hardest to identify on this model here, but you can see it is right there. This is probably very similar to lifelike as well as this is here, but since this is nice and highlighted, it's a little bit easier to identify. And then here you can see where this green line is right there is the sacral plexus. So this comes from the spinal nerves S1 through S4, and we have trunks and branches here as well. We've got the superior gluteal, all right, superior gluteal, then the inferior, or you could say gluteal, which is what I would normally say, all right, and then it's going to go on to the sciatic nerve, okay, lost my pen. Sciatic nerve here, and then we're going to have the posterior femoral, or sometimes this is called the posterior femoral cutaneous, and then the pudendal. All right, pudendal there. There's a memory aid for this that can help you to know those. Some Irish sailor pesters Polly. Some Irish sailor pesters Polly, and that stands for superior gluteal. Some Irish is inferior gluteal. Sailor is sciatic. Pesters is going to be posterior cutaneous, and then Polly is going to be Pudendal. That's how you can remember those. So the first one that we are going to look at here is the superior gluteal. All right, so this is going to come from the roots L4, L5, and S1. It leaves the pelvis via the greater sciatic foramen. So think back to the skeletal system. And then gluteal, so that tells us basically what it's going to do. Superior meaning above, so it's going to be above the inferior one, which is below. And it's going to innervate the gluteus minimus, medius, and tensor fascia latae. So the one below that is the inferior gluteal, and as you can see here, I don't have a good portion of this on a model. So that's probably a good hint that if I ask you for this on the exam, it's probably going to be an APR image, okay? So take note of those things. That can help you a little bit there. So this leaves the pelvis also at the greater sciatic foramen. Comes from roots L5, S1, and S2, and this is going to innervate the gluteus maximus. So now we have the sciatic nerve, which you're probably familiar with because people commonly have problems with sciatica or sciatic nerve pain from doing too much sitting and that type of thing, where that nerve gets compressed, and so it can cause a lot of pain all throughout the buttocks and the legs. And this is actually the largest nerve in the body. It's up to 2 centimeters wide. It comes from roots L4, L5, S1 through S3. And it's going to innervate the posterior thigh, and then through its branches, it's going to indirectly innervate all the muscles of the leg and foot. So sciatic nerve is going to split off to many other little things, in other words. So posterior femoral cutaneous. Posterior, well, that tells you it is going to be on the back side, on the posterior side. Femoral lets you know that it is coming off femoral, and cutaneous lets you know that it is going to help innervate skin. So this comes from S1, S2, S3. This one is sensory only for the skin on the posterior thigh and the leg and the perineum. The pudendal here is going to leave via the greater sciatic foramen. It comes from S2 through S4 is where it's going to innervate skeletal muscle in the perineum, the external urethral sphincter, and the anal sphincter. And so you can see it's kind of got that little loop where it is going right back into those structures. So now we're going to look at nerves of the lower limb. So here we're looking at Saphenous, and you can see this over here on this flat man board here, Saphenous. I like that one because it's pretty easy to identify. It kind of goes down the side of the leg, so Saphenous goes down the side, and you can see that whole path as it comes on and starts down here, Saphenous. This is the terminal sensory branch of the femoral nerve. So up here it's going to be femoral, but as it travels down, the last branch that it makes is the Saphenous. And this is going to provide some cutaneous innervation, which remember cutaneous is to the skin, for the knee, the leg, and the foot, which makes sense because that's where it passes by. Then we have the sciatic nerve here, and it is going to move on down and branch down, and it's going to eventually down here become the tibial nerve. Then it's going to divide into two nerves at the foot. All right, and so tibial nerve is going to go alongside the tibia. So the peroneal is a terminal branch off the common fibular nerve. So common usually is going to be referring to a vessel or structure that is going to branch off into something else. And so you will have the common fibular nerve, and then it's going to branch off into the deep fibular nerve here above the knee. So you can see it branching off right there. It is also sometimes called the peroneal nerve. So sometimes these things have more than one name, so it's really important that you are familiar with both names, okay? And so before it gets to the knee, it is when it branches off, that is the deep fibular or peroneal. The roots for this are L4 to S1, and this is going to supply the anterior compartment of the leg and some parts of the foot, as you can see in the middle diagram down here. So you can really see in this picture here on the left, we do have lots of branches coming off that femoral nerve. Here we're looking at the posterior cutaneous, sometimes called the posterior femoral cutaneous. All right. This is a sensory branch from the sacral plexus, S1, S2, and S3, and it supplies the posterior thigh, buttocks, and the posterior scrotum or labia, depending on if you're a male or a female. All right, so here we have the common peroneal fibular nerve. This is also sometimes called the common peroneal nerve, external or lateral popliteal nerve. And so this is the smallest terminal branch of the sciatic nerve. Sorry, you can see the sciatic nerve here, and then it branches off right there to be the common fibular or peroneal nerve. And this is going to innervate the biceps femoris. Lastly, we have the superficial fibular nerve. So superficial lets you know it's not going to be deep, it's going to be near the surface, it's going to be near the skin. It comes from roots L4 to S1. This is sometimes called the superficial peroneal nerve, and it is going to innervate the lateral compartment on the side of the leg. And you can see that is where it's situated here on the side.